punk rock changed our lives.
Nice to meet you, Trip. I've heard about you before, heard good things about you, so I'm excited to meet you and have you on the podcast.
Oh, thanks for having me, guys. Really happy to be here. I'm glad whoever I paid to say nice things about me is following through on the deal.
Yeah, your PR company's working.
Yeah.
Can I get a referral? I need one.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. So what's the word? How we doing? Where's everybody?
This is pretty
I
much
am
it.
in New York.
Okay. What part?
Upstate New York. Western New York, actually. Rochester.
Rochester.
Yep, that's the one.
Love it. Love it. Got family up in semi in that neck of the woods.
Where at?
They're all from Casanova. They grew up there.
Okay.
So
Yeah.
we'd go up there every summer and hang out in the lake.
College town.
Yep. Good old Syracuse.
Yep.
Not a place you want to be ever from around October to.
We just won the snowball this year. They beat us. I don't know what they win for that, but they did, in fact, beat Rochester for the snowiest metropolitan city in the country.
Crazy.
Although it did snow here yesterday. Maybe we got ahead again.
Hence the indoor walking laps.
Yes, that's 100% what it is, honestly.
I love it. Well, I'm here in Austin, Texas. We had the exact opposite weather. It was the last 2 mornings, it was about 33 degrees, and then it gets up to about 85 or 90. So
I mean,
can't make up its mind.
Austin is just like the king of hipster stuff right now, is it not? Like, it's
Yeah.
crushing. But it's the conservative hipster stuff. Like,
Dude, you literally nailed it.
I know.
It is a very specific type of hipster. It's like
Yes.
the tech, like how do I what is like the Venn diagram has got to be so interesting, right? It's like carnivore diet / tech /
jiu-jitsu.
maha / like mix of social libertarianism.
Nick Bear,
Yeah,
like,
it doesn't make any sense. But I'll tell you what, it makes for some interesting
Don't forget
conversation.
those at camp, because that part of the Venn diagram is still in there too. Yeah.
Also
well, dude, you guys are probably going to get a bunch of business coming in anyway. So I thought you said where are people from? I thought, or is this it? I thought you meant like physically the people on the podcast. I was like, oh yeah. I'm from somewhere nowhere near as fun. I'm right outside of Flint, Michigan. If you're familiar with that at all, probably just the water crisis or one of the most dangerous cities to live in for the last at least 15 years, or what else? Automotive industry or at one point, very good basketball city.
Yeah,
And
true.
for the hood rat.
Yeah.
Truth. I was born and raised in DC, so we gave you a big run for Murder Capital of the world.
DC is a so DC. Let's talk about the hoods for a second. Of difference because you have like even in just Detroit versus Saginaw versus Flint, there's differences. When I went to DC, holy shit, that was a different type because it didn't go with the personality of like a Michigan. Like you had to. They were, dude, they were gnarly. And like, I hate to say this, this is in a nice way, but like,
I hate to say it, but
I couldn't trust anyone. I couldn't trust the bum. I couldn't trust this person or that person.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that's how I felt when I was deep in DC in basketball tournaments. I'd be like, dude, what is going on here?
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden it'd be really nice. Like really, really nice out of nowhere. Like,
Yeah. The DC gentrification line is literally the line. So from one house to the next house, you have, $2 million brownstone with, a gay couple with 3 adopted kids living in it. And then next door, it's like flop house.
Yeah.
And that line has just been continuously moving, south and east and south and west. So when I was growing up in DC, DC split up into 4 quadrants: Northwest, Southwest, Northeast, and Southeast. And Southwest is like the very smallest quadrant because it used to cross over the Potomac and take over Alexandria. And then, I don't know, there was a war between the North and the South America called the Civil War. I don't know if you guys heard of it, but whatever. Virginia obviously stayed inside of the South, so they took their segment back. And never returned it. So DC is now this weird square that is missing the majority of the southwest corner. And the dynamics of how that city has changed in just the time that I was there from birth to about 18, and the times that I've come back in between, living out west and being in the Air Force and all these other things, just drastically changed. Connecticut Avenue used to divide Northwest DC, and on the east side of the road, literally on the east side of the road, one block in, you had a bunch of like gay bars and clubs. And on the west side of the road, it was, like dive bars and like dive, like 80s dive bars, like go in and you're like, I'm cool, I'll be fine. That guy, maybe not. But it was this weird place where it would mix with, lobbyists and DC insiders and newspaper, journalists and the whole nine, and just kind of your regular DC, folks. And as if you went one block further east, past like the gay bars, it was like immediately no-go zone. Like police would basically, if they saw anyone that looked like us, they'd be like, get out of here. I don't even care if you run lights. Like you shouldn't be here. And that line has just continuously moved further and further and further and further and further east. It's funny. Georgetown used to be, we actually had a CrossFit gym in Georgetown for a solid 2 years called CrossFit Georgetown, CrossFit Balance Georgetown. And it used to be a place where you had the university and you had some really nice houses, right? Like where all the CIA folks lived, let's be honest. And you had that kind of section, but then right down Wisconsin Avenue that kind of fed Georgetown and M Street, every other shop was like sneakers wrapped in cellophane, head shop followed by Manic Panic selling, like the original kind of Hot Topics where it was, you had the true DC punk scene to go into those stores. So all that stuff now is like gone. It's become this huge corporate hub.
Story. I feel like we have so much in common. Last thing before Cary gets mad, because I want to hear exactly the origin, is what that whole monologue, no, not monologue, but it made me remind me of is like the 90s skater days where like people would just migrate from Philadelphia. You remember, what was the dude? Oh man, we're going to, I don't know. Anyway, he kept getting beat up in Philly because he was the only dude who skated around in the hood, and he migrated his way all the way out to California, couch surfed out there.
Mike Valley.
No, it was
not Mike Valley.
No, I'm going to figure it out.
I think. Are you?
Go ahead.
West Philadelphia, born and raised.
Not
on the playground.
No, not Fresh Prince.
You sure it's not?
I don't know.
It's not Fresh Prince.
You just described the plot of that, so
I'm gonna figure it out.
That's fine. I'm excited to hear it is. But it's interesting that you bring that up because that was very much the culture that I was a part of. I before I even started playing sports, really. Well, I mean, I guess I played sports as a young kid. But then, like my 10, 11, 12, 13 years, it was skateboarding. And that's where I started jumping. And then jumping turned into me hanging out with a bunch of kids, all the black kids hanging out waiting for the bus after school one day. And they were all like trying to dunk like a softball. And I had hair way longer than this, obviously no beard at a whopping 12 years old. I looked like a gangly little girl. And I was like, I think I could probably do it. And they were all like, no, you can't, dude. Like, we've known you forever. Like, you can't do that. And they're like, and it was also like the age of white men can't jump. Like the references to that movie were at its peak. And so I literally went up and dunked it. And they were all like, oh, shit. And that was my entry into, you should probably play basketball.
It's Stevie Williams. Yeah. That's who I'm talking about.
Yeah, that checks.
Yeah.
I don't know. I'm not familiar with his story, but I'd be down to hear about it.
Yeah, dude. He was from Philly and just got beat up all the time because he's the only dude who skated and just migrated his way out to California because that's what you had to do in the 90s. And he started the DGK company and like his mom, basically the police picked him up one day and like, dude, your mom has been looking for you for a year and a half. And he's like, yeah, but I had to be out here. And because there's no cell phones or
exactly. Like, West Side, son, let's go. I'm literally wearing my CrossFit Hollywood shirt. So
okay, I'm done, Cary.
No, hey, I'm not mad. I think it's fun to follow your stream of consciousness, Andrew. Like it is different week to week, day to day,
sure,
minute to minute, really.
Yeah, it's
Trip,
probably difficult getting he and I together because it's just going to be.
That's perfect. I love it. The reason Trip's here is I've only known Trip for not even 2 years yet. We met at the CrossFit Games, roughly.
Yep.
2 years ago, and we're like immediate friends and bonded and walked a lot of places together. And it was like, I don't know, like just fast connection, which I think, I think what we're all experiencing at this stage of life is when that pops up, don't ignore it. Like lean into that as hard as possible. But Trip, you strike me as a person that like connection. I don't want to say it comes easy because I don't think things comes easy. I think that's a practiced and learned skill for you. Where does that start for you?
To be honest with you, it started as a protection mechanism. It's funny. My wife is pregnant. We're about to have our first baby in July. Let's go. More Americans. Thank you. I'm pretty sure I'm the dad.
Wow. Hey, get ready, Trip. I got 3 under 4 and under.
More gray beard coming.
Yeah.
I'm saving a couple spots of brown so I can, fill it in with full gray. But yeah, so we're having a girl. So of course we're walking through this, we're touring, preschools and daycares and the whole nine. And we're walking through this one yesterday and going down this hallway, this room's full of kids. They're all sitting at the table, drawing lines, following rules. And then we get to this one room and everyone's doing their thing. And there's this one kid in the corner, literally just spitting on the floor and being real angry. And I literally turned to all the people we were doing the tour with. And I was like, that was me. I did not want to be there. Didn't want to talk to people. First kid that came up and tried to be friends with me, I literally kicked him in the head. I was not a friendly kid. And I think a lot of that was just based around, I grew up in this really big, large, overzealous family, right? Irish, Italian, half Irish, half Italian. Like you needed to be like this all the time. And I became very comfortable with that environment. But outside of that environment, I didn't want to take that anywhere else because it was kind of like you fit in or you don't fit in with the family. And so if you're outside of the family, like, who are these people? So it really took me a while to kind of develop friends. And in the process, the story I was kind of saying before about, going from skating to playing basketball, I was very much kind of the nerd outcast kid. Like I had long hair, didn't really fit in. It kind of ended up playing into the grunge movement. And then so I started getting attention for skating. Then I started wanting to play basketball because my energy shifted into that arena. And then I started kind of being good at basketball. And then when you start kind of being good at sports in the 90s and high school, that's kind of like, hey, this person might be cool. Nothing to do with my personality. My personality sucked. But I was kind of okay at sports. So everyone was like, oh, we should probably talk to that guy. Got in some fights, which kind of surprisingly actually got me some street cred. And then also started, kind of making friends because, I started becoming a teenage boy. So then girls became interesting. And I was like, I got to develop something here. And really in the end, my outgoing personality that now has turned into a way for me to be able to connect with guys like Cary and make friendships started as this way for me to be able to manage people at an arm's distance. If I'm, gregarious and outgoing and asking you questions and talking to you or telling you a story, some of which I very much inherited from my dad and my family, then I can always manage how close you are and how much information you have and how much I need to engage with you. So it came from very humble beginnings and probably maybe not the best intentions. But ultimately it has developed over time of going, oh, I can use this for good. I can actually lean into some of these experiences that I've had that other people have shared and build bonds relatively quickly. Because in my younger years, it was like everyone get away. And now in my 40s, I'm like, yeah, I would like some people to get closer. Let's have some deeper relationships because I've got less time and less energy for it. So how do we maximize and be efficient with that time? So who knows? We all end up where we end up, right? See how it goes. I'm sure I'll probably regret it at some point later again if I let somebody too close in, but TBD.
No,
cross that bridge when I get there.
I don't think so. That was Yeah, I've never seen someone have so many parallels to my own life in a sentence, from the basketball to skating to. I actually think that's what's called getting the most out of life, because you said it. We like, let me give you an example. We ended up moving. We had a nice house, gentrified well, had a ton of equity, and we realized, the classic 2.75% interest rate. I'm never moving, yada yada. And in my head, once we had our third kid, a kid I used to train who has already 3 kids, he plans on having 7, 8. Probably he'll have as many as, yeah, very good Catholic boy.
He's following the rules.
Yep, he's not only younger than me, but I even will go back to him and look up to him for some things. And he literally came to me. He's like, "So you're just going to tell your kids that you had a great interest rate and ruin their life?" He's very. We put him. Sometimes we're like, "Is he on the spectrum? Is he on the spectrum or a genius?" We don't really know, but he's so blunt. And he said that to me, and I was like, "Motherfucker, you're right." So we moved like back to the '90s, a subdivision that's like the '90s with sidewalks with. Everyone knows one another. They all have kids. We don't know where the kids are at. We just like check people like around. Like, hey, is he over at your house? And literally, you know how like all the horror you read about like kids and screen time and stuff. Like, I have to force them to like watch TV. Like, I physically have to be like, dude, watch TV now. It's weird because everybody's like, hey, how do you get back to a '90s lifestyle? It's like, well, you have to recreate it. So that's really cool that we had such similar stories there. Do you own a gym, Trip?
No, I've not currently. I've been in the gym ownership game previously. Let's see, long track record. Say that again.
Trip has done some gym things.
Yeah, give us
done a couple, man.
I want to hear about them.
Yeah, man, it's been a long run. I graduated from University of Delaware, and like everyone else, like everyone who goes to Delaware, they go, "What the fuck was I doing going to Delaware?" But
hey, Joe Biden went to Delaware.
I know not everyone had a president that went to their university, so shoulders. But God, aged. But anywho. Got done with college and moved back to DC, and was kind of going like, what, this emoji, like, I don't know, what am I going to do with my life? And in the process, started working at a gym called Fitness First, where it was like the gym I would always go work out at when I would be home for an extended period of time and staying with my parents. And I'd made friends with 2 of the guys who worked there, 2 guys who later became 2 of my best friends in life. One of them was, one of my best men at the wedding. And I get back, I'm working for them. I start, that's like my entry into the gym, fitness, training, coaching, management, operations, sales side of it. But I do that for, maybe 6-7 months before I get the opportunity to go and live in Mexico for a little while and then move to Las Vegas. So way too much to go into that scenario. We don't have enough time. But once I get to Las Vegas, I get introduced to CrossFit. So Zach Forrest is out there. He has CrossFit Las Vegas. He had just gotten out of the SEALs and had been introduced to it with Castro and, and the whole crew down there in Southern California. So he brings it to Las Vegas. At the time, I was like, hell yeah, brother. Like, let's go. Hard workouts, good friendships. And that was kind of my entry into CrossFit. Moved to Los Angeles. Got connected with Andy Thompson, CrossFit Hollywood. He and I became great friends, made great relationships there. And then I ended up leaving to go into the Air Force. Prior to going into the Air Force, I moved back home to DC because I was like, I'm going to spend time with my friends and family before I ship out. And I thought I was going to be there for 2 months, 3 months. Ended up being there for about a year and a half, and was running CrossFit Balance locations with Danielle. So like all these overlapping CrossFit experiences just in like 3 or 4 years, right? From, 2008.
Wait, Danielle, like my Danielle?
Yeah,
Okay.
Danielle Williams. Yeah.
That's how I
Danielle
first
Williams.
learned about you a couple of weeks ago when I just ran the event with Danielle, and then she told me about you. And then I was like, well, this is a small world, because then Cary put you on the podcast. That's why I was laughing about
Funny.
it.
It is such a small world, right? Well, I mean, like, Andrew, kind of to your point, like there is this weird curve where everyone you know who got into something around the same time starts to, I don't want to say peak, but starts to hit this kind of like level of operations and engagement in in communities broadly. And so you see those overlaps where you say, oh, the world is so small, because we all have these overlaps that interlace. Meanwhile, like earlier in life and later in life, our worlds get smaller. So we go, yeah, I used to know the guy who was the place, or, I used to know this gal Danielle who used to be the so on and so forth, because we fade out. And I think we're all still very much in that overlapping phase. But Danielle and I were running CrossFit Time, and Craig at the time, he was coming in, but CrossFit Time, Balance Time Circle, CrossFit Balance Foggy Bottom in Georgetown. And so was managing, operating those gyms, went into the Air Force, got out, came back to DC, and we started opening F45 franchises as the counterbalance to our big box gym locations with Balance Gym, our CrossFit box locations, and then F45 was kind of like the catch-all. People who were like, I don't want to get bulky in the CrossFit world. The people who were like, I feel weird going into a big box gym and I don't know what to do with my hands. We were like, come over here to 45. And then we use that as the jumping point to onboard people into training. And then from there, you do CrossFit for 6-7 months and you go, cool, I've gotten all the gains I can get out of this. At that point, people would start to really lean into, hey, I want to get into powerlifting. Hey, I want to get into strength. I wanted to get into, more intense workouts, in a CrossFit training scenario, or, hey, maybe I'm a yogi, and we would send them to the big box gym or personal training. So it became this, again, overlapping Venn diagram of different fitness brands. So, short story long to your question, Andrew. Yes, I've owned gyms, been involved in a ton, and all different facets. So it's always really interesting and great to meet other folks, especially people who know people I've worked with, and see the trajectory that everyone's been on over so many years. Now that we're in, what is this, year 17, 18 of kind of publicly known access CrossFit. What drives me like completely wild is when you see a kid who's like 22 now, 23, and they're just studs. And you're like, yo, they just don't make kids like that. And I go, no, man, that kid started training at 7. Yeah. They went to the CrossFit Kids seminar that was held by, Pat Barber or whoever, and they're just 25 now. Like, that's how old I am. So
absolutely
jealous.
It's pretty wild to think about that. There's an entire generation of essentially 30-year-olds essentially at this point who grew up as CrossFit kids, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like Connor Martin and all those other kids. You're like, wow, these kids are literally born in the CrossFit gym. And I'm like, wow, I've been doing this for far too long. If these kids, like, I've been doing it longer than a lot of people have been alive. And I'm like, this is crazy. But yeah, sure. There's a whole breed of kids, not just in CrossFit gyms in general. I mean, I think that CrossFit made that general physical preparedness available to so many kids. And like, there's a lot of really, really gifted kids now. And I think it's a very cool thing.
Yeah, no, I agree completely. My wife and I talk about how the engagement, because you guys have kids, and Cary and I actually talked about this recently, is, kids will only listen to this much of what you say, but they will see this much of what you do. And, I'm so lucky to be blessed with the amazing wife that I have, that she's an athlete. She continues to work out even, into her 3rd trimester, and still smoke me on workouts, frankly. But like doing that and continuing to do that after the kid is born, and just go do it, because she and I are both athletes. Like, our biggest fear is that we have a kid that's born that's like, a mathematical artist, and she and I are both like, cool, we're knuckle draggers, bro. How do we talk? How do we engage?
It's not like they pop out at like 7. So you get those 7 years to figure out like who they are, and you'll be with them all the whole way. It's because we have no idea, but Henry did say something to Allison the other day. He's like, can I start training in the garage with Dad? And it's like, oh my God, yes. Like I have an assortment of equipment. We have a full garage gym that I've never touched in a way that, like, I don't work out there. Like, I prefer the affiliate and all that, but like that's all that's there for him at whatever point he wants to start that. So, or never, but it's there.
Love it.
Trip, I have a trippy question for you. First of all, I did used to have long hair. Just to let you know.
Bring it back. It's time.
I know. Like most people who met me through CrossFit, they would have met me through that. So that's even another parallel. I want to know your capitalistic approach on money, because all of that sounds so good, and you're so
I know we were going to end up here somehow.
I did, because Tony, it is what it is. I'm going to talk about skating, basketball, kids.
He's going to slip Bitcoin in a second, so just
Bitcoin, yeah. So
he's aligned with you so well thus far that this is more like a dating profile. He's checked all the boxes for
He's like, I'm about to swipe right on this. Right. Just say one more thing.
Well, because my mission, so Danielle and I have the same role with CrossFit, except I'm the Midwest. So I do kind of know you now, because some things she spoke very highly of you before, like in her past and stuff. So now, putting two and two together of hearing that, how do we get people to understand that, like, it sounds like you've done a lot of well, and you probably didn't necessarily do it for the money or something like this. Sounds like in that, but managing an F45, did you own the F45 or manage it, or how did that?
Both.
Okay. So you obviously made some smart decisions in your time financially.
Mm-hmm.
I want to know, was that coming from a place of putting money on more of a pedestal, or did you just do what you felt was right and it came, or was there ever a blend? Because what I'm finding is that CrossFit, we're living in this little fantasy world of like, build it and they will come. And if I just become the best trainer, that's enough. And that was a false sense of our leadership, not currently, in my opinion, in the past. Hey, if you're just the world's best trainer, it's going to happen. And if you don't drink soda, as Tony rips some soda, it's
the sparkling water.
I know.
Ooh, it's a Waterloo. What a legend.
Even if you did. So I don't know. I take that micro monologue and I want you to talk to it, right? Because as someone who, it seems like you've made some good decisions, and you're a competitor, and your upbringing, how does that all fall? Like, take, for example, I love money, not the things. Like, I don't even buy clothes, but I love how the concept of it. And I remember a lot of things, my mom taught me of trying to not have debt or do this or that. And some funny things I remember, I was a little kid. She took me up to her place was in Flint, and it was an eye center, and the dude washing the windows. I remember her telling me, I was a little kid. I remember her telling me, like, hey, Andrew, just let you know, that guy is a multi-millionaire. And he was the nicest guy ever, just in jeans, he's like, she's told me, she's like, he just loves washing the windows, but he is a multi-millionaire. He loves what he does, and you would never know. And I don't know, just how does someone make good decisions and still not be an asshat? How's that for the question?
It's a great question. I am probably the perfect person to ask, because I'm definitely an asshat. You're giving me a lot of credit for making good decisions, because I've made some of them, but I would argue that most of them have been sheer luck and timing. And I've made a bunch of terrible decisions. And I would say it's, again, I think the theme that I keep hitting on in this call is ebb and flow and like overlapping Venn diagrams, right? To the point of build it and they will come, and be the best trainer, there was a truth to that at a certain point, right? CrossFit was on its rise. Everyone was talking about it. People wanted to be involved in it. Hey, you have your level 1. Oh, people got their level 1. Oh, snap. Like, it was a thing people talked about. And I think that those were the days. That was the time when build it and they will come was a thing, because the heat nationally was so high that if you opened a CrossFit box and you were a good coach, people didn't care. They were willing to show up and take on this new challenge with a good coach that wanted to see it through with them. Even if you weren't a good gym manager, even if the parking at the box sucks, like whatever it was, if you were a good person, you were a good coach, they were willing to deal with old crunchy kettlebells that you got, secondhand, right? We matriculated out of that phase real fast. Rogue started making more and better and easier to acquire equipment packs. People started getting level 1s at a ridiculous level, and then everybody and their brother started opening gyms. Great for general, access to fitness. Not so great for the brand to a certain extent because not everyone was doing it for the right reasons, kind of to your point, right? I do think that, you look at all those evolutions and those cycles as they've come and gone. And then we have the cycle of where CrossFit was like, either, your entire gym was geared towards games athletes. And you didn't even want to do it like that, but people were showing up and being like, do you have a training profile for games athletes? And you were like, yeah, from 3 to 5, we have a, open gym for you to do your own programming type thing. Like, it was, that happened. And I think it was good, bad. It had negative impacts on some people in their gyms and their finances. But I think it got away from like talking about what really the whole goal of CrossFit was to get people squatting, get people moving, and get everybody moving. So whether you're 90 or you're 9, like everywhere in between. And I think we've kind of come back to a cool place where that exists again, but with new standards. You have to be a good gym manager. You have to find the right location. You have to be a good coach. And to how that speaks to the financial piece for it, for me, throughout history and then also now, is if it's about the money, it's not if it's going to fail, it's when it's going to fail. Unless it was, I'm the money guy and I'm willing to bring you 3 in to run the gym and I'm literally just going to fuck off. If that was the case, then yeah, you might have a great gym and a great community. Because I think that ultimately in the end, it is the community that matters. If you are able to build that community and you're able to build that community for longevity rather than for, cutting weight for the next 6 weeks, the Hormozy plan, then you're going to make an impact in your community. You're really going to benefit the people that come to your gym, and you'll benefit the community more broadly because of the benefits that the people from the gym grow with, right? And what they take out when they leave the box. And I think nowadays, building that community is more difficult, not because it's actually harder to build community, but you have to find the right place, the right space, in terms of, like 4 walls and a roof. It has to be in the right community. It can't be oversaturated. It can't be undersaturated. Right now, first quarter of this year, you have a lot of people losing their jobs or in positions where they're worried about losing their jobs. Like, I'm really concerned how that's going to affect existing gyms, and then gyms that are getting ready to open. There's going to be a lot of pass through on those things in terms of positive and negative effects. And so I really do think that when it comes to the financial piece, you have to be sound, much more sound now than you did, in 2011 when you were opening a gym. But you also really need to get back to, and I don't accuse any of you of this, but I think gym owners in general, whether it's big box, whether it's CrossFit box, whether it's, just a hybrid training gym, an F45, whatever the hell it is, like you just have to really give a shit about the people who are coming through that door. And all of our gyms that have been successful have really just been based on that. There's going to be the ebb and flow of people wanting to quit or, change and cancel their memberships, or, hey, I'm getting a divorce, I'm moving out of town, my husband or wife goes here, I can't go here anymore. There's going to be those things, like the human, interchangeable day in, day out kind of life happening things. But if you generally are always trying to help people wherever they're at in their fitness, I'm going to say it, journey. Oh God, that was painful. But I said it. But in that, in that quest, that fitness quest, as long as you're trying to help them for the time that you have them, and then you're willing to pass them off if they want to move on without fighting them over it, then I think that you're always going to have a good reputation. I think that your gym will be successful during the time that you have it. I also think there's a big piece too about doing, co-branded ownership, right? Or co-model ownership. So, bringing in multiple brands, multiple coaches, giving them some ownership in the gym. I mean, one of the biggest issues we always dealt with was coach turnover. You have a great coach, they start getting in a little bit of money. People say, hey man, I really like Cary's classes. Like, Cary, can you personal train me? And then Cary's taking on 10 personal training clients, a day. That's affecting his class performance. And he's going, well, I'm making more per hour over here than I can coaching your class. Why would I stay here? I'm not seeing the vision long-term. And then you lose a coach. And then the people that love that coach, 20% of them might leave, but the ones you keep still miss him, and so being able to build that longevity, I think, is tough. And there's a million different ways to do that. But I know it was a little bit of a long rambling answer to your question, but I do think that there is just the big overarching piece is you've got to at least be fundamentally sound in managing the business and where to operate it. But also, number one, I always say is just community. People are always willing to give you slack. If you're like, hey man, sorry, I pushed you too hard on that workout, or hey, I was giving you the wrong information about that technique and I went and did more research and I want to readjust, like, can we reestablish that trust? They'll be like, hell yeah. Nobody says that. So the fact that you said it to me actually gives you more trust. That accountability, I think, is key.
I think it's a cool sort of segue in terms of like how I came to hear about you for the first time. Because Danielle, like I said, it's a couple of weeks ago, ironically, that we were having a conversation mostly about, her story. Person. I just got done speaking at the affiliate gathering and we were sitting in the back while Tom McCoy was talking, and we were talking about basically carrying our connection at scale, because it was kind of sort of the impetus of what I just got done talking about, and helping people kind of better understand how to show up individually so they can better connect with themselves, other people. The point was that you came up and essentially that her partner, you, was really good at that. And so I was like, oh, interesting. I think I'd heard of everybody in CrossFit at this point because I've been around for so long. And I was like, who's this guy? And then it just so happens that you came up, and then Cary wanted to bring you on here. And then that let me basically kind of fall down the trip down the rabbit hole, I suppose.
Hey.
And then, so that led me to the work that you do with More Perfect Union. And then essentially I stumbled onto what is Sandlot Tech. And now, so I have a bunch of questions, which I think pulls us away from the CrossFit conversation, but I think keeps us kind of there, because I think where you were going with that is so vital to the affiliate owners, because not that constantly varied functional movement won't always be important. It will be. It's just essentially become, that's the standard, right? It's the barrier now. And in many ways, multiple brands have essentially tried to take that, utilize it. And so I wouldn't say it's commoditized, but it's ever present. It's at least omnipresent. The thing that matters, regardless of what brand is on the wall or what the logos look like, is the gyms that can connect better, and really the businesses that can connect better, which I think is really the thing that I'm the most interested in, is connection at scale, and teaching people how to kind of do that are more important. So I'm going to pull us that way, I think, to some degree, because I know Cary also was inclined to go in that direction. But I think that that's the valuable part too for so many affiliate owners, because it's so easy to get caught up in the minutia of, like, I talk about a lot in terms of should versus could. What should I be doing in my affiliate? They get caught up in class plans and points of performance and things like that, and balance sheets. And then they miss the piece of it that matters, which is, like, I don't know if I've ever, maybe a couple of times, but I don't think I've ever really met an affiliate owner who's not here because they're like, it changed my life, right? And so I want to kind of do that and connect more. And then they get in, they start doing the thing, and it starts to get chaotic, and they forget about the connection piece of it, and they're so caught up in the chaos. And so I think it's cool to see a bit of your story from the pieces that I do know, in terms of where you've kind of gone to and the natural flow of moving into the work that I'd love to hear more about the work that you do with MPU. Kind of what led you to where you're at now. But I guess Cary had some good questions about this one too, so I'll let him ask that one. But that's the piece that I'm interested in, is how you stumbled into the connection piece of that so much, and then really how you came to have, because you have a pretty cool worldview, which I think will be very valuable to anybody else that's listening.
Look, one, I appreciate that question. Two, I also appreciate the kudos of saying I have a good worldview. Wish I understood it. Wish I understood my own view better. But I would say, like, to your point, you get in, everyone that I've met in the CrossFit community, even if you're on the lowest level of it, is an A-type personality. You want to do it, you want to compete, you want to do better, and so, we might lean into the physical aspect a little bit more, but once you get into the affiliate owner or the gym owner or the operator experience, it's like, how do I do that better? How do I do that better? Oh man, it's just sucking energy out of me. I suck at this. I need to get better at it.
Yeah.
Right? Like, be virtuous, try to be better at the things you're not good at, right? Work your strengths, but also work your weaknesses. And those things are great, but like you said, they can completely distract you from the fucking point. And the point is, none of us are going to live forever. We're all going to die. How much time do you want to spend fussing over a lot of really inconvenient minutia that in the end won't really matter? versus just going to someone and saying, hey man, sorry I overcharged you for that class, like refund the money, let's go have a beer at the social this Friday, right? Whatever it is. Because that is the whole point. The whole point is to get people healthier, and healthy in fitness is one thing. But I've seen in gyms and in people, the fitness aspect and the gym management aspect actually corrode the community, because people become cliquey. They become so focused on the fitness that then they don't want to be friends with anyone anymore, because everything is a competition, to the point of like, at what point does the caveman turn back? Do we turn back into the caveman and then the ape, right? And so it is a really difficult balance to be able to say, hey, where is it a diminishing return? That if we keep going down this rabbit hole of trying to do this, that we're actually losing focus of what's important. And I think I learned that lesson a couple of different hard ways of not really being stuck on what my actual values that I was trying to live up to were, and losing some sight of that. And you get in that mode, and I've gotten in that mode because, hey, we've had one gym, then we have two, then we have three. And now it's a rush to make sure that it makes financial sense, when really what we wanted to do was just have two. And when you take it back to two, it's like, okay, cool. We went too far. We saw that we went too far. We pulled it back. We had some losses, but really in the end, we condensed our communities, and everyone benefited from it more so, right? Not just the community aspect, but the fitness aspect. The coaches were better. Coaching experience was better. The gym member experience was better. The financial aspect on our end was better. We could pay coaches more so that they were staying for longer rather than rotating out. So, I just see when you find that happy space, and that balance, like you do see just a positive impact all around, and you can feel it too, because the gym is cruising. You know what I mean? You show up at that 4:30 class, or and you're like, oh, who the fuck works out at 4:30 in the morning? And then people are there. They're like happy to be there. And the same thing for the 7 o'clock class, right? When you go into the class at 7, and the coach is like, all right, I'm gonna grab a fucking PVC pipe, like let's go. I'm like, sweet, can't wait to do this class. That's gonna be awesome, right? So everyone's gotta be happy with what they're doing.
Yeah, I think what you're talking about, you said community a bunch, but and I think that's the term that I actually cringe at more than fitness journey, but I hear you. And because it's so overused without maybe everybody understanding what it is. And I think part of it is culture, but I'm more curious, because you've been successful at this, and I think, again, you can dovetail this into MPU, but what are the qualities of the culture or the community that you create that are actually valuable, that help you and maybe compel you to want to build it?
Look, great question. I cringe at the word community as well, but it's also something that I just have to keep hitting people over the head with it. And I think your question is perfect. Look, I live in Austin. We make this joke at the beginning. It's like everyone's a community, and the hands have to go like this, in the process, or namaste hands. And here's the thing. I don't hate on that, actually, because everyone needs a place to belong. And if that's your house and that's where you find, the people that love and support you, hell yeah, brother, go get it. Not my style, but it doesn't mean that it can't be someone else's style, right? So I love that for the people who need that. For me, directly to your point though, Cary, is community has to be about vision. And that vision can't just be, any one of the four of us showing up and being like, here's the vision, right? It has to be a vision that you have collected and created and cultivated based on the people that are in the community, right? Because, look, 40-year-old white dude coming into any scenario and being like, let me lead you. It's never gone wrong in history before, right? Let's trust that. No, it ultimately has to be a scenario of people need to be involved in the vision and want that same vision. If you are the person that's trying to sell it to them every day, and you need to force their buy-in by dumping your energy into pushing it, then it's going to die, because one of you is going to give out first. So if you're creating a community based on a common vision and common goals and common values, to be honest with you, that is where I think is the most key. And if you're able to sit here and state Like, these are my core values as a person. These are our core values as a business or as an operating team or as a gym, and get people on board with that at the beginning. Then you'll see longevity and you'll see the community kind of bond together, right? And then I think also too, it is about holding extracurricular activities. Hold the rowing clinic where it's not intense, where you got snacks and beer in the corner, right? Whatever. Of course, I say beer all the time. Like, I know not everyone drinks, so that's fine. But hey, Athletic Brewing is making a great IPA these days. So throw some of those in the cooler and have an event that is a networking event where people can mix and hang out and also learn something. Personal development is huge. There's not a person I know that is our age that doesn't feel like they're weak in some kind of aspect that is not just fitness, right? Mm-hmm. Financial management, understanding my mortgage, whatever it is, right? Bring in an expert to your gym and host the event for your community that is free for them to partake in, right? Those are things that just, again, whatever, weird ideas that might fit for your community that stem from your community. And again, that also goes to just talking to the people at your gym. Don't just know that you have 338 members, right? Know who they are, talk to them, know their names, understand them, have them fill out the survey when they come in so that hey, you got a wife, you got kids, you got, a sick mother or whatever it is. Those little tidbits go a long way. And I think that builds community on its own, so that word, the C word, doesn't just become this weird sticky punchline that people try to use. It actually means something. I think that there's a huge issue, and I mean, this directly ties to MPU, is we've identified that there's a huge issue in this country as when you see the political polarization. But what is the political polarization? In my mind, in my opinion, this is not MPU, this is Triple O'Connell speaking, it's bullshit. It is a way that we have been defined to look at one another. And so we say, Andrew is on this side, Cary is on that side. But really, in the end, if you talk to those two dudes and you put them together, they actually probably see eye to eye on way more things than they don't. Yeah. And the people who are at the ends of the spectrum are the smallest groups of the population. They just have the biggest and loudest microphones at the moment, because people who are actually out doing the right thing are pretty humble. They're not sitting here with a phone being look at me, here I am at CrossFit Gym building community, or the ones that are the ones where you go, I want to bomb. So how do we build communities around the country that are based on these values that get people together, right? Any one of you can answer this question. What are the three things you don't talk about in America?
Politics,
money,
Politics, money, and religion.
Yeah.
Religion, and probably sexual intercourse. I would say
probably that as well. Puritans.
I don't know. I really haven't been on social media recently.
No, the Ramsey one is Dave. I love Ramsey's rant on that one, because he always says, parents never talk to you about sex or money, and you probably suck at both of them.
Yeah.
And it's when an old man says that to you, you're like,
oof.
Right. Yeah.
I love his recent quote where he was like, I actually don't own anything. I manage it for God. That was hilarious. But here's the thing though, Andrew, you nailed it though. The things that we don't talk about are the things that we're not good at, right? You don't do your snatches. Guess what you're going to be really bad at, and you're going to avoid the day you don't show up to the gym? Snatches. You're not going to do it. And so one thing that we have identified in More Perfect Union, that Americans don't have a common identity. We really don't. Right? It used to be white picket house, fence house, 2.3 kids, cheap goods for low price, or, lots of different goods for low prices. But that social contract has kind of been sucked away from us over the last, 15 to 20 years.
Tariffs.
And now people are starting to see that they can't get access to the American dream. There's no new painting of a picture of what the new American dream is. And there's really not a lot of leaders that people go, that's a righteous person that I really trust. They're having to pick the best of what they feel like they kind of connect with. And then in the end, now people have to pick a side, of which they had almost no part in deciding what went into that side. So how do we as a country and then as an organization start to rebuild that middle, and not middle politically? I mean, just the nucleus of what America is, because you have people from all over the world that have moved here, whether you're first generation or 10th generation. The fact is we have people that moved all over this country, right? So immigration and emigration, where people have moved all over the place, and we don't have a common theme. You go to Norway and guess what? They're all fucking Norwegian. Like it's not hard. You go to China and there's a billion Han Chinese. They can all be like, yeah, I don't like you, but we're the same. In the US, we are truly built on ideals, and those ideals have been either muddled, or the water has been muddied, or they have not been emphasized in a way that people are representing them in a way that people go, yeah, that's what I want to be. And so a lot of that has been replaced by money or hatred or political, partisanship, because it's a way for humans. We all want to be part of a group. We all want to lock into a tribe. It's one of the ways that we do that. It's why somebody will be like, see an Eagles fan and be like, fuck you. You know what I mean? And it's like, who's your team? And it's like, I don't really know, but I hate the Eagles. You're like, who cares? We are weird monkeys still in that nature. And so we say, hey, if we're going to all still be weird monkeys, why don't we come together over 6 core values: service, virtue, compassion, courage, humility, and hope.
Very, very
hard
awesome
to argue.
Of you. Very Austin of you to
call
you a monkey. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. I'm apish.
Ape.
But the idea is, if we can bring people together on those values and have people start talking to each other and listening to each other, because instead of me sitting down and being like, Cary, who'd you vote for? Andrew, who'd you vote for? Ready? Be friends. Real easy way to end a conversation, right? But if I say, hey, I want everyone to go around the circle and you have 2 minutes to tell me about someone in your life that showed you compassion. Now we do that once a month for 12 months, and we get some of the same overlapping people at every single event, and you keep adding more and more people. Everyone leaves that event and they go, I don't even know who these people voted for, but I know who they are. I know what makes them tick. So when you get to the conversation that's difficult, hey, why'd you vote for this person? Or hey, why do you believe in that policy? Because I feel like we were so the same in so many ways, and then you went this way and I went that way. It's not like a, hey, fuck you. It's a, hey, I want to understand how you got there, because I might actually want to go there too. Or you might actually want to come with me, or we might actually, hopefully, come up with a much better solution, because the system and the way that it's organized now is not meant for solutions to play out in a way that benefits the public. It's truly not. And so, to go into Washington or your local state house or your city council and like plant a flag and be like, I'm here to change everything. You shall not pass. Everyone's gonna be like, cool, fuck off, Gandalf. But if you build a group of people who come together and say, I'm not left, I'm not right, we're just trying to do what is right, and then you go to your city council, that's going to have a much bigger impact, right? And then that's going to make politics change, which makes civics change. I think people interchange politics and civics often, and they think civic engagement is I go vote every 2 years or every 4 years. Meanwhile, civic engagement is, hey, why has my road never been redone? Hey, where's the funding for my school going? Why are they still in these, segmented classrooms that are built on the backside of the campus? Hey, why, is this or that not happening when it comes to our local tax dollars, whatever it may be. But I think that that's the critical piece, is we got to get people to start building those bonds again, create a common American identity so that they can look at each other and say, well, it's not because this person's Christian and that person's Muslim, this person's gay, straight, white, black, rich, old, young. It's like, hey, we all are working towards the same goal. So it's a lofty goal, but difficult move.
Yeah, I want to know what you think, Trip, because I think that there's no one that's done that better than Joe Rogan. I don't think there's any, I don't think there's any person who has brought more people together, specifically males, than Joe Rogan has over the last decade. If you think, I can walk into anywhere and be like, did you hear Rogan? And then it's like, why is Rogan that way? I've actually done some psychology dives on like, why can everyone feel like they kind of have to listen? Or because he doesn't ever really pick a side. He's smart, he's articulate, but those are like easy. The one thing is like, well, he knows he can kick your ass.
And Andrew got cut off.
Class. You got a good class.
That's what happens when you talk about Joe Rogan.
Sorry, no, yeah, I know. Anyway, it's gone. So he knows he can kick your ass, so he doesn't have to have that as the front runner, right? So he's not here to do that. Now, if you come at him aggressively, he may meet you with that energy, like he used to do with Alex Jones or something. Where, if you've ever watched his podcast, you can kind of see. But then he truly is empathetic, and he wants to hear the person's story because he's so interested. Like he's genuinely like the adult male version of Blippi. You'll learn soon about Blippi, Trip. Very curious. And so here's just my rebuttal is like, dude, you want to know where I think we went wrong? I think we don't have that hyper local. I don't think you can get, if you're not sitting with those guys, shameless plug for fireside chats, if you don't get in front of people a lot, your tribe, I think that's where it starts to get away. And I think that's why maybe CrossFit gyms, churches, things like that do such a good, because you constantly see the same people. It's like why you had such good friendships in school. Everyone's like, I'm in a homeschool. It's like, dude, I get it. You can go down these rabbit holes. Like, I'm probably going to send my kid to school because I want him to do life in front of and meet some friends. Like I still talk to my like school friends after X many years. Doesn't matter.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah, no. Well, I think Joe Rogan is, like any human being on the planet has, a cycle, right? I very much listening to him in the early 2000s or 2010s, 11 through 15, 16, it very much seemed like he was much more kind of, hey, I'm just having interesting conversations here. And then at some point, you get $100 million in the bank and then you start hanging out with richer and richer folks. And then you start getting a little bit more, desegregated from the normal population. And, I've seen him start to take a little bit more of a lean, but that regardless of that, I do think that the point you made about his common access to humans, I think it, look, we all grew up in the 70s, 80s, 90s, where there were common access points for us all to communicate, right? The four of us would go home, we'd come back to school the next day, or we'd see each other at practice or whatever it is. And it was like, did you see Friends last night? Or did you see this movie? Like everyone was watching the same 10 things. Or remember the Adam Sandler album? Like the CD
Absolutely.
That was like 100%. We can all reference that, right? Like fucking the dope. He's like, they superimpose me, dude. Like, I'm sure we can all reference these pieces from it, but it's because there was so few cultural references for all of us to tie into. Joe Rogan kind of played the role of being that for men in an age where there are not a lot of good men publicly. And so I think to your point, we talk about the masculinity crisis that everyone talks about in the world. I do think it's, especially in the US, I do think it's true to an extent, but it's a lot of times because people we saw in public, our public figures who were masculine, were not the right version of it. Right. I mean, like, don't get me wrong. I love 90s wrestling, but if you think that that's what a dude is, and like, then no. And I mean, if you watch any of the behind the scenes, the dark side of wrestling, like not so good with their families. That is certainly not how I want to be with my wife and my daughter. You know what I mean? And I'm sure that's you guys too, but we could separate the fantasy and the show from the behavior and the macho man Randy Savageness of it, right? And I think nowadays you see young men especially sitting at home playing video games and then being able to lean into this conversations. Because look, we all play video games. We all talk shit. Like young men, we talk shit. It's like, it's not kind. It's the worst. And if we went deep into that rabbit hole because we never had to come back to dinner and like have my dad be like, yo, don't say that. That's not what you say. Right. Mm-hmm. And like put a boundary on it. Then we probably would never have known what the boundaries were. And so I think that you have a little bit of that bleeding in a lot of ways, and people would lean into the Joe Rogan sphere because they go, just like you said, he carries himself with an air of confidence that I think is not unique to fighters, but I think it is unique to public male figures these days. I don't know if you guys follow Jason Wilson, but he's another great person, right? It very much speaks the same language to me. You can tell when you see a guy who who is putting on a show.
Yeah.
He's coming in, he's got inflated lat syndrome. He's like, "What's up, bro?" And you're like, "Cool, this guy." right? But you get in a group like this, and even though we might have differing ideals or something like that, we're not all sitting here good like posturing, because there's a subtle, quiet confidence of knowing like, one, we don't need to fight. We can just disagree, and if we can't disagree appropriately, then we'll stop. And to the point to where we also go, I actually respect your opinion, even if I disagree with you. We can still move forward down the path. And there's not a lot of that in just like public discourse. So when Joe sits down, in 2008 with Bernie, and he says this, or in 2018 he says this, but then he sits down with someone else and says that, people go, okay, he's just asking questions and he wants to understand. And I think that is something that people are yearning for. And like you said, hyper local is clutch, because that takes it from being like, hey, this person has a Trump flag outside of their house and this person has a Kamala flag outside their house. I need to pick which neighbor I'm friends with. It's like, hey, let's throw a block party and you guys can all talk about how you actually really didn't like either one of them. And how neither one of their policies actually were going to benefit you, right? Like, or whatever. Or, hey, pro this, pro that, right? Some people are one topic voters. That's fine. I don't have to agree with you. That's cool. Like, we all get the same two choices, which I think is part of the conversation, right? Is how do we improve that process? And it's not ever going to change if we don't change how we engage, and say like, hey, how do we make things more free? How do we make more opportunity for more voting? How do we engage more frequently, more civically? And to your point, Andrew, like, again, sitting down with the tribe and having those conversations, right? Like, what's Dunbar's number? It's like, after you get outside of 500 people, everyone's like just another face.
I thought it was like 150.
Exactly. So like 150 is like the tribe. 500 is like oh, cool, I know you're Cary's buddy from the other tribe. Got it. Yeah, I can vaguely recognize your face. Outside of 500, it's like, I don't know, you're a stranger to me. And like, that's it. Unfortunately for us as humans, like, that is how we developed and how we continue to breed, and have we gotten to this point. And I think we're at a point now where Tristan Harris said this thing. He goes, we've got Paleolithic brains, we've got medieval systems, and we've got godlike technology. And we're all over here sitting here going like this, trying to figure out how we bridge those three gaps.
Yeah, we created a dire wolf.
Yeah, dude, cool. But I also go, who's in charge of that project? Where does that? Who puts the boundaries on that one?
Best use of our time. Yeah,
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, dude. That's really cool. And I think more men, it's me. Why do I always say men? It's because, my buddies who obviously, like, marriage is, if anyone's like, marriage is easy, like, that's wrong. It's beautiful. It's the best thing in the world. It's, what you're meant to do and have kids and all this stuff. However, my buddies will call me pissed off and like, Andrew, you seem to have all your shit together. I'm like, okay, well, I'm glad that you think that. That's not true. But I always end up telling my male buddies who can't get this through their head, I'm like, dude, I love you, but I can't be your wife. Like, what you're describing to me is you want a man to be in your house. This is not college sports anymore, my guy. We live together, and if I didn't do the dishes, my job, you got to be like, the fuck, dude, you fucking idiot. And you can't do that to your wife, even if she didn't do her part, because that's not how you want to treat her. Do you know what I like? It's just like all this, but I'm like, but you can marry, like, you're allowed to go be with a guy. You just need to be attracted to them and all that stuff. Are you? And then they always get pissed and they're like,
yeah. And you're like, dude, you can go into the Marines tomorrow and live that life for the rest of your life.
Exactly.
Or you can learn how to communicate.
Yes.
Because what you're saying isn't crazy. It's like, oh, fuck, hey, I feel disappointed or let down, or honestly, I'm frustrated, like that thing didn't get done. Okay. And then are you willing to actually take stock of whether or not you've lived up to all the things you said you were going to do? Because most of us are not willing to sit in that discomfort, right? Which is, to summarize the whole thing, like, Trip, so much of what you're talking about is, are you willing to be uncomfortable, right? Are you willing to be uncomfortable with those people, have that conversation, sit and lean into that, and then make it a bigger thing, and it never needs to be contentious. It can just be, oh, interesting, you have that opinion. Can I be curious about that? at the end of it, I may not see it that way. Perfectly fine though, but then I maybe understand you better, right?
Yeah.
Like what a beautiful thing to be like, oh, well, Trip comes from that background. He's lived here. His life experience is such that one completely different than mine, right? Like Andrew, you should think about this, right? Like, and you know this, right? Like you're not the same person raising each of your kids. Like when you had your first, you're a different human. Then that experience alone changes you before the second one comes along. You're a different human, right? So you can't possibly raise them the same way, which people get hung up on that all the time. I have 3 different kids. I treated them all the same. And it's like, no, you didn't. You were fundamentally a different person. You tried, and which then you're playing a role trying that rather than just trying to be present and be who you are and live that life. But I think, yeah, if we could all just sit in the discomfort of like, oh, you didn't do the dishes. Now I feel like this, like, okay, you know what? But fuck it, I'll go have a beer. You know, like that's the response. That's not the right response. That's like, I'm going to dissociate and not address the problem. And is there a problem? Or did you just feel uncomfortable and you needed to like make somebody feel bad about it?
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And look, I think that there is is anecdotal, but a lot of my take on that is the people I see who respond like that are people who didn't have friends of the opposite sex growing up. Guys who were only friends with guys and girls who were only friends with girls, and then they just immediately met in, at max hormonal stage. I'm not saying that's the only effect. That's the only impact thing having an impact here, but I know the people who do that, they only see the other person as the other half of what the sex part is. Mm-hmm. And they don't realize that it's like, hey, when you live in a house with someone, just literally to both your points, when you live in a house with somebody, like, yeah, you and your bros in college, you might be able to be like, Andrew, what the fuck, dude? You left the fucking door and laundry thing open. Now everything's mildewy. Like, whatever, bro, suck a dick. Like, yeah, like, cool. Like, that's fine. Like, you can move through that, right? You can move through that for a little period of time. But, like, I don't want to live like that now. And, call me an elitist if you want. But it's not a happy place for everyone to live in, forever. And so if you want to be someone who wants to be in a relationship with someone, no matter who they are, like, Andrew, to your point, like, you want to go be with a guy, fine. Probably don't treat them like shit though. And Cary, to your point, probably just learn how to communicate. That starts like in just the internal nucleus, but then we're talking about your gym. Do the same thing. Like if your coach comes in and didn't clean the, like a barbell up, or didn't clean the chalk off the floor, like, and you're like, what the fuck, dude? Like, yeah, I can't bet they're going to work for you for a long time. How long is that $50 a class you're paying them going to last before they're like, later, dude? Train yourself, train other people to be better people and work together. And I think that just makes a huge difference in building, like to your point, Cary, like, you got to be willing to sit in the discomfort.
I do think that luckily, I know I've been through some therapy with my good buddy, Bill Anthons. And man, he pointed out some things. I know for me, I do think there's key logs. You guys all know key log reference. So like people get paid gazillions of dollars, that word, to fly in helicopters over a huge dam that might have something to do with, I don't know, an energy supply. So they're looking at the water and they're like, damn beavers. And they don't have the time or resources to like dig this thing out. Like an engineer goes in and basically says, all right, you pick that log right there, pluck that thing out, the whole thing's going to crumble. And so I think that, and you can use that in human movement in the body. People always have an issue and they're like, fuck. Like I remember when I started kettlebell training, my shoulder pain I had for like 6 years went away. I have no concept or clue. It was a key log. But I think in our lives with these relationships, you need to look at yourself. Like, what is the key log that's pissing me off about this reaction that I'm having? And I know for me, it's because I had no self-defense. I had no father. I had all these things, and I was always very scared. So that's why I have to do things that are like the I would say the gross side of masculinity. Like I have to, do jujitsu now for my up here, or like I have no concept how to like shoot a gun. I was always around him in a dangerous area. I didn't have a dad showing me. So I'm going to have to, I took CPL class. I'm going to have to, but also I'm very competitive. So I'm going to have to like train to do the cool shit that you see like Jacob Hepner do or something, just because that's the only way I know how to confidently do things. And so, but that's not cool. That's not fun to admit to yourself that you were like a scared little boy all the time. That's why you have to do these things. But if I'm bringing those to like a room of dudes to be like, motherfucker, check this out, dude. Check this out. I'm going to slap all of you and then do. I don't even have that in me. Even if it's on the most elite side, like I'm a very gentle person. I like to have gentle, fun conversations. What's the class? Like, oh, you don't want to see me mad, man. I love when guys say, you don't want to see me mad.
I just turned red, bro. I see red. And you're like, red.
I'm like, you.
That's crazy, man. I see like, douchebag.
Yeah. I want to sit down. Like I literally want to know who or what hurt you, because I genuinely care. And I can't stop laughing at it. It's probably making your red worse, you know, but like I can't.
But it's true. I mean, what's the old sentiment? Hurt people.
Yeah.
And in the end, if you're not, it takes the olive branch to stick out to somebody like that, like you're saying, Andrew, to say like, hey, man, I get that you're mad, and I don't think I can fix all of it, but I can help you unpack a little bit of it. Why don't you just tell me what makes you so angry? Because 99% of the time, probably nobody listened, because that person probably got 1 or 2 sentences in and was saying some cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs crazy stuff that they've never said out loud, because it's just been spinning around in their brain for how long, making it make sense to themselves. And you let them get through that first segment and they let it off their chest and they go, oh, dude, are we best friends? And you're like, no, man, we're not. But like, I'm really glad that you made this progress. Right. And that's like the first step in that process of, turning into someone different. But it takes a leader. It takes someone who's willing to sit in the discomfort. It takes someone who is compassionate and cares and is willing to have gentle conversations and maybe be in a bit of a danger zone, right? And it's not easy. And let's be honest, most people don't like doing not easy shit.
True.
Gentlemen, I hate to run, but I have to have a conversation with Leslie Allen, who owns True Spirit CrossFit in Montana, if you guys are familiar.
I am, actually. Yeah.
Nice.
She's a stud, by the way.
Yeah. I love it.